Hello, and welcome back to the highest production value channel on the face of the internet, made slightly better by this very cheap $10 microphone that I'm now holding, which should hopefully make the audio a little less crackly. What I want to do today is go back to the basics. So this is actually my second video on the channel. The first one being a bit of a self-introduction as well. But what I realized in retrospect is there's actually a lot of Booktube Newbie tags, kind of pre-made, preset structures to give people an indication of who you are as a new channel. And I thought that would be a good thing to go back to. I'm going to keep that first video up. If you've seen it, thank you very much. If you haven't seen it, don't worry about it, because hopefully this one will fill in some of those blanks as well, give you an indication of who I am as a person, you know, what I like to read, what I'm like, what I'm hoping to do with this channel. And then we can take it from there. So what I have today is it looks about 10 questions in front of me. I'm going to go through them one by one, and yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So the first question that's in front of me now is, why did you start this channel? And the simple answer is just as an outlet. I've been reading for a long time, and I think that's one of the questions further down. And I have a solid network of friends and a family. I've got a wife and 2 kids, and I love them all to death. But I don't really have anyone that close to me who is a super big reader like I am. I'll try and read every night, maybe 50 or 100 pages. Doesn't always happen. These days it almost certainly doesn't happen. But what I'm finding is that I'll finish a book and try and talk about it with someone when I should be, setting the table, or, try to give my kids a bath, or whatever I'm doing. And I don't really have anyone that I can, share these thoughts with. So hopefully that's what this channel is going to be, is a way for me to kind of vent or complain or celebrate, and hopefully celebrate more often than vent about the stories I'm reading, and have those discussions, because I really feel like currently what I'm doing is finishing a book and putting it on the shelf and moving on with my life, and that's not doing some of these wonderful stories justice. I also think it would be a really good opportunity for me, this channel, to learn some more editing and videography skills, because currently I have none. This video is going to I'm going to hit the stop button, I'm going to upload it. But I'm hoping that over the next year or two, I can actually learn some editing skills and things like that, because that's not something I have at all. I have no acumen there. So maybe, hopefully, I can learn some of that. And the third thing that I'd like to do with this channel is be a bit more confident with my public speaking. I'm a teacher during the day, and I find it okay speaking with young people. I can speak with young people fairly easy in a chatty manner, but what often happens outside of the classroom, when I'm speaking to people who I kind of deem my peers, or just a group of adults, or a group of people of more than, let's say, 5, I crumble. I have to stop, pause, go back, circle back, spend 5 seconds staring into space. I just can't do it. I can't hack it. And speaking to a camera is sort of like that, in a way, isn't it? So I'm hoping to use this channel as a means of kind of propelling my public speaking skills, which I do think there are opportunities to improve with. So that's what I'm going to do here. Question number 2, what new things can you bring to the community? And all I can really answer there is my own perspective. I'm not going to be the smartest bloke on the platform. I won't have read the most books. I will not be as knowledgeable about my favorite books as anyone else who is out there. Do you know what I mean? There's always going to be someone. All I can do is add my own voice into the foray. But that's fine. I think humans are social creatures. We learn from one another. And if I can maybe slightly change someone's opinion, or set someone on a new series of books that I think they will enjoy, or I can make someone see a book in a different way, or more importantly, someone can do that back to me, I think that's worthwhile. And I'm really confident that I can enthusiastically do that and learn about new books and have my perspective changed. And if that's what this is, that's wonderful. And that's quite similar to question 3, actually, which is, what are you most excited about regarding this channel? And it is kind of that self-development thing, that thing I've spoken about previously. Thinking about books in a certain way, and developing those skills. There's not really a whole lot to say there, I guess, because I've kind of summed it up previously. But it is that self-growth. Some of the channels I like the most are ones that have taken books that I thought I knew very well. For example, Blood Meridian, that classic book that every guy purports to love. I do love Blood Meridian, and I have had university lectures on it and things like that. But actually, sometimes you'll look at a video and it will just put that book in a whole new light, or it'll give you a whole new perspective on a character or a scene. One of my favourite series as well is the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and I'm really delighted that in the past few years there's been so many booktubers and YouTubers who have taken to discussing that series with such aplomb, because again, it's such a chunky series, but you can get people digging into it and giving you new ways of celebrating that series. And so I'm really excited to kind of dig into those conversations with people, alongside everything else that I've said previously. So those are kind of the channel-centric questions. I suppose on top of that, I'd say I'm not quite sure what I want to do video to video. I guess I'm going to work that out as I go. Hopefully some reviews, top 5s, top 10s, what I'm reading, all that kind of stuff. Make it a sort of diary of my own. Beyond that, I'm just kind of excited to see where things go. My aim for uploads is once a week. I might do twice a week if it's a light week. I might do every other week if it's a very heavy kind of time of my life. But my aim is for regular, consistent uploads. The last thing I'll probably say regarding the channel itself is I'm really keen to just make it a space where I can get my thoughts out. I remember once, I think it was Brandon Sanderson in his lectures about writing. This was like 2018 when I watched these, but it always stuck with me, this quotation, where he said something along the lines of, when he wasn't getting published, and he had all these manuscripts piling up in a cupboard somewhere, he sat down and he thought to himself, if this is all it is, if it's stories that my friends and family read and that's it, do I still want to do it? And his answer was yes. And I kind of have a similar philosophy with this channel. If it's just me and my mate Andrew who watch these videos, and it's a space for me to kind of, dig a bit deeper into a passion that I love, that is fine. That's more than fine. That's excellent. So that's kind of what I want to do with this space. Even if it's just me talking into the void, and I get a bit deeper with this subject that I love, this passion that I love. So more interestingly, when did you start reading? I mean, I've always been a reader, but I think my reading really kicked into high gear when I was about 17 or 18. I just started university, and I obviously was reading some stuff. I mean, that's not true. You've had a lot of English students who don't read anything at all. But I read Song of Ice and Fire, as a lot of people do. And then I read The Dark Tower, and then I read Malazan. And that was over the course of about 6-7 months. I read these 3 series. Malazan was a bit longer. Malazan was about a year in total, but I kind of, between starting Game of Thrones and starting Malazan, was probably about 6-7 months. And it just completely changed the way I was kind of approaching books. It used to be maybe a book a month, get my coursework done, and suddenly I was reading 5, 6, 7 books a month. And I continue to read about 5, 6, 7 books a month because something just clicked in me. I think when you find your stories, those people who read 100 books a year, it's not really about reading 100 books a year, is it? It's about reading those 10 or 15 really high quality books that will stay with you, that you will buy for other people. And I sometimes feel like my reading life is just constantly trying to find that hit, that next book that just stays with you forever. Most recently, that was Lonesome Dove, and then The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Baker, which I read last week. That was definitely one of those 10 or 15 books a year. When did I start reading? 10, 12 years ago, I guess, mainly. Although I've been reading my whole life to some extent. Where do you read? Wherever I can. It used to be that I could just sit over a weekend and read 400 pages. Because I have 2 small children now, I don't really have that opportunity as often. So it's now more the case of I've got 20 pages here, go to a coffee shop and read 10, 15 pages here. On the bus, get the Kindle app out on my phone and read another 10, 15 pages. I've recently transitioned into reading more manga, which has been really delightful. But part of the reason for doing that is it's just a bit easier to get through. Audiobooks as well are a big help. They are often, when I play video games, all audiobook stuff, although I find that the retention isn't quite as good. So I have to be quite careful with the stories that I do via Audible. But wherever I can is really the answer to that. What kind of books do you like to read is the next question, guys. And my answer to that is, I kind of want to say everything, but I feel like I've kind of cheated my way through some of these questions with kind of aphoristic answers. So I'll just say science fiction and fantasy. It really is my wheelhouse. I'm always planning the next series I want to read in the kind of the speculative fiction space. What I often do find, though, is that the books that do stay with me are not necessarily science fiction and fantasy. I mentioned Lonesome Dove, and I think I mentioned it in the previous video. Western, and it was probably my favourite read of last year. Magnificent book. A couple of years ago, I read The Histories of Herodotus, and this thousands-year-old book. I probably butchered that pronunciation, but this thousands and thousands of year old book, and it felt like I was communing with someone from the past in a way I'd never experienced before, and that became one of the highlights of my year. I live in the Middle East right now. I live in Kuwait, and I'm here for another 6 months. And one thing that I don't have access to very easily is a high-quality English bookshop. I'm now kind of basically reading what I can come across if it's not on the Kindle app or if I haven't brought it with me with a suitcase. And that has also been quite a good thing in disguise, because it's really made me read whatever I can get my hands on, which has broadened my reading horizons. So I'm really kind of quite pleased to be exploring new genres and things like that. Science fiction and fantasy, I guess, with a sprinkle of everything else thrown in. 6 years ago, I was more into poetry and literary criticism, and I still am, but I'm struggling to find that niche again. So if you have any kind of poetry recommendations that are a wee bit on the easier side these days, and something that won't take a whole lot of cognitive strain to chew through a stanza, then I'm here for it. Please give me that recommendation. The next question, though, is what does your book collection look like? As I've said previously, because I live in somewhere where it's quite difficult to find good high quality books, my book collection is scattered to the four winds right now. I have a shelf over there with about 50-60 books that I brought from Scotland. My mother-in-law, my long-suffering mother-in-law, has a shelf in the States that she has for me where I can put some books. And then back home in Scotland, my long-suffering parents also have a bunch of books on the shelves for me. I'm really interested when I get to my new country in about 7 or 8 months, where I'm hopefully going to be living a bit longer term, to have a really nice bookshelf set up where I can take all these novels and stories and give them a space that they deserve. One thing I'm also getting into a lot more is having slightly more high quality books. I've always been a mass market paperback guy, whatever I can get my hands on. But as I'm beginning to really have a collection of stories that I enjoy, and a collection of stories that I feel like have personally affected me, I'm getting quite keen to buy those stories and have a nice collection of books. Maybe first editions if I can find them, or more likely kind of high quality, for example, broken binding or wraith marked editions, that I can make a nice special place for them. So I'm quite excited in my next country to have that final shelf, as it were, not the final shelf, but a quality shelf that I do not yet have, because currently my books are all over the place. So that's the answer to that question. Why do you love reading? I don't know. I think the bigger question is, why doesn't everyone love reading? I know it's not for everyone, and I think part of my job as an English teacher is to try and get people to read and inspire them to read and give them the right recommendations and things like that, and I love doing that. But sometimes it doesn't quite click with me why other people don't, because it's such a central part. And I'm sure that there are people like that with every hobby. Do you know what I mean? I'm sure foodies are like, why don't people always take that much joy in the food that they eat? Or people who are into sports, why aren't people so into the teams I'm into? And I think that's one of the glories of being alive, isn't it, that we don't all enjoy the same things. But reading is just such a big part of who I am. It really is. I cannot stop reading ever, and I don't plan to. Well, I guess I'll have to one day, but I never plan on stopping reading as long as I can. And it's just such an ingrained part of me. And I love exploring these other worlds that other people have created. I love finding a quotation that stays with me. I love coming across a fictional character who just deeply resonates with either with me or someone I know, or some kind of concept or idea. And when I have a few reviews up on the channel, hopefully in the next several weeks, I can then start to articulate more closely regarding specific books about why I love reading so much through the medium of talking about specific books. So we'll get to that later, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What books or series got you into reading? Game of Thrones, I guess, was the first one. Dark Tower, Malazan. I've now really gotten into a whole host of series. Currently, I'm reading Robin Hobb's stuff. I'm on book 8 of, 15 or 16 in the Realm of the Elderlings, and I'm loving that to pieces. The Wandering Inn is something I've been reading a lot of recently, and I'm really planning to have a video on that, because I'm really trying to put my finger on why I love this series so much. Because when you look at a page of The Wandering Inn, it doesn't really seem that special when you look at one page, but there's something about the cumulative effect of The Wandering Inn that is just addictive, and so I want to talk about that. I'm also really wanting to get through Christopher Rocchio's what's called the Sun Eater series. That's something that's really on my radar, and there's a few series I've really been looking to reread this year as well, so hopefully I'll talk about that later. But I think the first one was Song of Ice and Fire. Before that, when I was smaller, age 7 or 8, my misguided parents bought me a copy of The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I loved to pieces, even though I understood about 20% of the jokes. And now I'm probably up to about 80-85% of the jokes. I think one interesting thing that I'm hoping to do in the next couple of years is reread some of these old favourites. But I've totally avoided that question, which was what got you into reading, and I'm currently talking about what I'm reading right now. So I'll move on for now. But one thing I would like to do is reread some of the series that got me into reading. I think that could be a really special, interesting project whenever I can find the time. Penultimate question is what questions would you ask your favorite YouTuber, or booktuber, I guess? Forgive me, guys, if the mic quality goes in and out. I'm still, I probably should have lapelled it, but it's quite, kind of wanted to hold on to something. Show me your bookshelf. I had a job interview about a month and a half ago with a very fancy individual who clearly knew his stuff and was grilling me quite intensely about the subject matter. And the interview was fine, but one thing that I was really struggling not to ask the guy at the end is, can you show me your bookshelves? Because behind him he had this gorgeous tapestry of bookshelves that had like big hardbound, leather-bound hardback editions, and he had lots of interesting little titles, and some of them were front-facing, which is always an indication that someone knows what they're talking about. And I always think with booktubers, they've got those fancy shelves behind them that kind of show a bit of who they are, that are kind of a designed product in a way. It's the favourites, it's the really nice editions. But I also think sometimes the more interesting books are the ones at their feet that they're not showing you, or the ones that are in the hallway across. So I'm always interested in the bookshelf tours that people do, because you really get to get a strong flavour of who someone is by the books that aren't just in here, but also down below and to the sides, and that more holistic indication of who a reader is and what they're into. Now, the last question is quite interesting, and I'm going to leave it here. What challenges of starting a booktube channel will be the hardest to overcome? I am an anxious person, which you might have been able to intimate given the fact I can sometimes talk at 100 miles an hour. And I'm also a perfectionist. I don't like to put anything into the world that I deem to be subpar quality, which, I'll be honest, this video kind of is. It has to be. Your second video can't be perfect, especially me with zero editing skills holding this dodgy microphone. The promise I made to myself starting this channel, if I can get a little bit personal, is that all that I have to do is make sure that each video is better than the one that preceded it. I might have said that previously. As long as this video is slightly more confident and put together than the one previous, and maybe articulates my thoughts a bit better, that's what I'm looking for. I don't want to get bogged down in the anxiety of starting a new channel. I certainly don't want to be thinking about numbers and subscriptions, anything like that. I don't really care about that, if I'm honest. But there's something quite personal, and there's something quite sensitive, and it's the same with teaching, to be honest. And I think there'd be some good videos to make about, an English teacher's perspective on books and things like that, or maybe there's too many of those. But there's something quite personal about putting yourself out there in this way, especially on the internet, where people can just, type a comment and rip you to shreds. One thing, though, that I gave me the courage, I guess, to start this channel is that Booktube seems like a friendlier space. Now, you all might be absolutely feral behind the scenes, but it seems as though it's a slightly nicer place to kind of put your thoughts out there. People are more accepting, which gave me that final push to decide to put a video like this out and a channel like this out. But that is certainly the challenge for me, which is just to hit the upload button and not be scared to do that. And similarly, going through editing, don't have to think that first video everything's going to be perfect. I don't have the time or the abilities to do that right now, but just to keep going with it. This is a new hobby for me, and it very much is a hobby. And it's that consistency and that self-belief and that degree of confidence, I guess, is what I'm really hoping to be able to overcome. That and the fact I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but hopefully we'll get there. That is the Booktube Newbie Tag. As I say, I'm going to try and put a video out maybe 2 times a week, maximum once every 2 weeks minimum. We will see how it goes. But in the meantime, thank you very much for watching. And I'm looking forward to seeing what the next couple of months hold for this channel. Thank you very much, and I will see you next time.